Ever wondered who the most powerful killer in Dead by Daylight is? Inside of the realm we have a wide range of killers, each with their own unique abilities. Some are just people, others are superhumans or enhanced in some way, and some may even be considered godlike in their power. Let's rank them all least to most powerful lore-wise today to see. Here's our tiers, and let's get into it. Regular humans is our tier for the killers who are essentially just regular people. Some of them may have some skill that makes them more powerful than your average person, but they're also not supernatural or anything like that. Our weakest character I'd say is Bubba. Bubba is a character that largely gets his strength contextually in his lore, by being on a secluded farm and going up against largely unarmed and unsuspecting teenagers. Out of all these conditions, he's sort of just a strong guy with a chainsaw, and so I think out of all the normal killers available, he is probably the weakest. Clown is another killer who is only really strong in the context of his own story, I'd say. Otherwise he's fairly incompetent it seems, with even some of his victims who he's hit with his bottles managing to escape him. He's obviously got some skill and technique with how he does things, but he's unbelievably sloppy and his vices get to him. Pig is next up. While she does have clear skills and capability, she does rely a lot on Jigsaw for guidance, but also tools and equipment to make her as effective as she is. Without him, she'd be nowhere near as formidable. Still, she has some clear cunning and stealth. Trickster is just a guy with the ability to throw knives particularly quickly and accurately. He's not really shown to be overly meticulous or intelligent. His main skill is just money and fame, allowing him certain freedoms. His knife skills are definitely notable however, and do speak to a greater level of power than some of the others here. Legion you'd imagine would be the lowest, however they're not, largely because there's 4 of them, but also for the fact that they've studied other serial killers and stab wound studies. They'd probably be quite a brutal gang to go up against, and would be decently formidable, despite just being regular people. Highly skilled humans is next up, and our tier for humans with a high level of skill, who have proven themselves formidable in some way during their lore. Trapper I'd say fits this well, with him being an expert trapper. He's a brutal enforcer in his lore and learns from a young age how to trap his prey, even his prey ranging from bears all the way to the final destination of an entire mine full of his workers. He's also clearly slightly physically stronger than your average person, able to resist the hooks piercing his skin. Twins I've sort of debated putting into a higher tier, as they sort of have a supernatural element to them with Victor. However, Victor doesn't seem any stronger than how he was before. He's still just a guy. The only difference is they can detach, so they're still down here I think. Charlotte is incredibly good at survival, simply, even if that means killing along the way. Against all the odds that were stacking up, she managed to survive them through her childhood and into her early adulthood. Deathslinger proves himself throughout his lore that he's a formidable bounty hunter, with his name spreading far and wide throughout the American Midwest. He's known as Mad Mick or the Deathslinger. He's skilled with his creation of twisted weapons, which aid him in his bounty hunting. He's undeniably an above averagely skilled person. Skull Merchant is another highly skilled killer, with her creating incredibly complex tech such as her drones. She's also just proven herself incredibly intelligent, with her becoming a millionaire as a teen, and taking over seemingly tens or possibly hundreds of companies. She's further a brutal and vicious hunter, with her setting up special CEO hunts where she'd hunt and kill the CEOs of companies she'd planned to take over. Ghostface is shown throughout his lore to be incredibly intelligent and meticulous, able to easily maneuver and manipulate the entire city of Roseville into fearing the Ghostface, with him essentially writing his own story by also working at the local newspaper. Whilst Ghosty lacks tech or special abilities of any kind, his meticulous planning and studying of people and their behaviour allowed him to be an incredibly deadly killer who no one ever caught a trace of, until he wanted them to. Houndmaster you may be surprised to see higher than some of the others here, but she's proven to be incredibly formidable in her lore. She spends a large chunk of her life on a mysterious island, which is affected by an overlap. On this island she fights and beats many mysterious supernatural creatures, alongside Snug. Despite her just being a human, she's further greatly feared upon the seas as a legendary captain and fearsome warrior. Enhanced Beings is our next tier, and a tier where we begin to look into the characters who are beyond human or enhanced in some way. Artis may seem initially unassuming, but she's a great example of an enhanced character, and one I'd argue we don't quite see the full potential of. She's a killer able to mold parts of her body from ink into weapons that actually hurt. She's had this done to her by the entity too, with her likely being one of its favourite creations. This means she's probably decently powerful, although all we really see is her creation of the ink crow swarms and her palette blade in the realm, but I'm sure she can do a lot more. Nurse is similar, with her having entity-given abilities which enable her to blink forward, tearing through a sub-realm known as the Spirit World. This is intensely painful though, as we can hear Nurse cry out each time, but it's also a very strong ability that speaks to her power. Nurse further has telekinetic ability in general, with her able to break pallets and walls with just a gripping hand. Doctor has been gifted by the entity a persistent electrical spark within his heart, which allows him to fire electricity from his fingertips, which slowly drives people into madness. That's pretty crazy. Whilst these shocks don't seem to damage, they do seem to harm, and definitely mentally harm, whoever they come into contact with. On top of this, Doctor is also incredibly intelligent, and has been studying the usage of shock therapy for his entire life, making the overall package very powerful. Wraith is a character with already established considerable strength in his lore, which is displayed when he tears the skull and spine of his boss clean out with a single pull. He now further has entity enhancements though too, with him capable of cloaking himself with his bell, allowing for a stealthy approach. Wraith is clearly changed. We can see this just by looking at him. He's far more supernatural and powerful now. Billy is a killer who seems to have gained supernatural ability either before or after coming to the realm. He already displays great strength in his lore, able to slaughter the farm's cattle with a single swing of his hammer. In the realm, he now sprints at what is stated to be superhuman speeds when using his chainsaw, with it imbuing him with strength. I'd say this overall makes him quite powerful when further considering his tinkering abilities. Hag is a character who wields the power of the hexes and seems to also be enhanced by the power of the entity after she formed a blood oath with it. It's not clear what exactly Hag is able to do, but it seems she can curse people in various ways by drawing a hex. She's further physically enhanced, with her becoming physically stronger and her hand mutating into a large claw that enables her to make the hexes spark to life. Plague is interesting, as although she appears pretty normal, she does now wield a highly deadly plague that she's able to literally vomit onto people. This likely makes her intensely deadly in certain situations. Her red vomit is also very powerful, injuring anyone who makes any contact with it. So while she's unassuming as just a priestess, she does have quite a high degree of power. Chucky is one you may scoff at a little, considering he is the tiniest man in existence. However, despite him maybe not quite having the battle prowess as some of the others up here, he does definitely have some clearly supernatural elements to him, with him dying multiple times throughout the films, and at points holding the power to reverse death and create new forms of life. Chucky is unassuming to say the least, and whilst you could punt him across a room, he'd likely eventually win by some means. Springtrap, similar to Chucky, may not appear overly powerful, being a corpse in a faulty bunny costume, but he's a lot more powerful and supernatural than that, with him repeatedly defying death throughout the series. He further has likely some enhanced strength and power due to the suit's capabilities, and generally I think he'd just quite simply be unkillable. He'll always come back, that's literally his thing. Super or supernatural beings is our tier for beings that are a tier above the enhanced in terms of power level, with greater strength or ability, whether it be by means of science or the supernatural, a step up. Knight is a character seemingly enhanced by the entity, with him gifted the ability to summon his guards at will by planting his blade into the ground. He himself is also ghostly appearing, suggesting he may be capable of surviving death or more fatal wounds to some degree. All of this plus the fact that he's an incredibly formidable fighter, taking on an entire army alongside his boys. Huntress is far more powerful than she initially appears as a simple hunter in a forest. She's actually, or seemingly, a werelk too, a werewolf type of creature, with her able to transform into this monstrous beast. This would explain just why she was so unbelievably deadly during her time surviving alone in the Red Forest. She's noted to take down entire towns full of people and even squadrons of soldiers, and some cosmetics even make mention of her surviving the full-on flames of a flamethrower. Her enhanced strength and resistance therefore as a werewolf seem pretty likely, this paired with her impressive hunting skills, and she is deadly for sure. Xenomorph is a being built for efficient and stealthy killing, with its slender frame, tough skin, and inner mouth. Xenomorphs are very tough to defeat, with fire being one of few weaknesses they have. Even when you try to pierce their skin, acid spews out. They're a truly formidable creature, even without any entity enhancement. Demogorgon is a creature who is durable with its thick skin, which cannot be pierced by knives or bullets, and only seems stoppable by means of particular weapons. Demo also seems to have some supernatural enhancements or connections, is able to use a form of telekinesis in the first series of the show, and seems to generally have a hive mind type of connection to the wider Upside Down and Vecna himself. Whilst Demo may just appear as a cute little dog, it's far stronger than that. Blight is another pretty unassuming character, I'd say, with him looking pretty wrecked. He's got his jaw on the floor and his body seems completely destroyed. However, he's also seemingly enhanced by one of the strongest substances present in the entity's realm, the Blight. The Blight serum enables things to transform, becoming the strongest versions of themselves, enhancing their features and possibly even bridging their memory across their omniversal selves. Talbot himself is also highly intelligent, and along with Vigo's help, was the great mind behind the creation and wielding of the serum, a serum which he constantly is pumping into himself too. Singularity is a character stated to be incredibly intelligent, with his intelligence eclipsing that of humanity's in 2313. He further creates a new body for himself which is far superior to that of any human, crafting what he views as a perfect or peak body. Whilst we don't quite see Hux in his peak state, it must have been pretty formidable, as it still looks decently intact after he suffered a very large and direct explosion. Hux is further enabled and given sentience by an ancient alien crystal with unknown but likely substantial power. It enlightened Hux, and seemed to pour a huge amount of knowledge and data into him also. Nemesis is a powerful BOW created by Umbrella. Nemesis is basically just a walking tank, but with far more durability, and the ability to adapt to his environment based on the situation. For example, when he's tossed into a river, he transforms to become amphibian. When he's coated in acid, he just keeps mutating until he overcomes it, becoming an enormous mass. Nemesis is also enhanced by the Nemesis Alpha Parasite, which gives him an increased level of intelligence compared to most other BOWs. Nemesis is a powerhouse. Wesker is another character from the Resident Evil universe and is more powerful, I'd say, than Nemesis, with him being far more intelligent, but also wielding the Ouroboros virus, enabling him considerable strength and power, this virus being one he perfected over years of work, utilizing his findings of where others failed. Wesker can move incredibly quickly, hit incredibly hard, and he's likely a few steps ahead at all times too, always with a new plan up his sleeve. Kaneki as a ghoul is incredibly powerful, enhanced by his ghoul abilities and Kagune. Kaneki is a particularly strong ghoul, or technically half ghoul, due to his incredible healing abilities he develops after his torture from Jason. This forms Kaneki into being one of the most powerful ghouls of his universe. He's got enhanced speed, strength, and his Kagune, plus being a half ghoul means he's able to control and moderate himself far more easily. Spirit is seemingly the entity's take on a Japanese onryo, a being in folklore which is a highly powerful, vengeful spirit. Whilst her spirit may not be quite at this level of power, she's certainly still very strong, with her varied abilities of phasing in and out of the ethereal plane, going invisible and reappearing. This paired with her seemingly strengthened and repaired body, which now ominously floats. Is it even possible to kill her in this state? I don't know. Oni is seemingly the entity's take on an actual Japanese folklore Oni, which would mean Oni may be fairly similar in power, with Onis being seen as godlike beings with considerable power. The only reason I'm not putting Oni that high is because he doesn't seem to be that kind, but instead a sort of imitation made by the entity. The entity has gifted Kazan with greater strength and a channelable rage that allows him to explode in power, speeding him up and strengthening him. In his blood fury, he's nearly unstoppable. This on top of his already impressive battle prowess, and it's clear that Oni is a force to be reckoned with. Godlike Beings is our tier for the killers who are immortal or close to it, and highly powerful in their respective abilities. Myers is debated quite heavily on how strong or weak he is. I do think he's quite clearly a formidable force despite him simply appearing human. He's an embodiment of evil itself in the form of a human, seemingly. The darkness within driving him and enabling him a considerable degree of power he otherwise wouldn't have. It's allowed him to seemingly teleport, survive deadly wounds, and even completely resurrect himself. Pinhead as a Cenobite is seen as a demon to some and an angel to others, and appears highly powerful and supernatural in his abilities that he's gotten from Hell or the Labyrinth. Some of these can be seen in the realm, with Pinhead's ability to summon chains from portals to bind anyone who stands in his path. Pinhead also sort of benefits from having the support of many other Cenobites on his side, alongside his very own entity of sorts, Leviathan. Unknown is a mysterious being who existed in the town of Greenville primarily, terrorizing it through the years. It seems to have taken many forms, with its legend evolving with the times, and ultimately resulting in its current form. No one has ever had a clear account of it as a creature and survived, meaning it must have been quite powerful, able to overpower everything that it's faced down. Aside the entity, I suppose. Unknown is a mysterious and formidable force of unknown origin. Pyramid Head is also a mysterious being but of known origin, this origin being James Sunderland's tortured mind. Pyramid Head was created for the purpose of making James face his guilt surrounding his wife's murder. He's shown to be indestructible during Silent Hill 2, and incapable of taking meaningful damage when attacked, as he's essentially an idea more than anything, manifested by Silent Hill. Whilst Pyramid Head's realm self does seem to be more tangible, he still seems substantially powerful, supernatural, and with a wide range of abilities. He's one of few characters the entity explicitly reaches out an invitation to, a rare gesture. It also lets him customize the trials a bit more compared to other killers, letting him cage the survivors instead of hooking them, and planting trails into the trial grounds. Freddy is highly powerful as a seemingly immortal dream demon, who came back from the dead seemingly just out of pure hatred, but also due to him still living on in the memories of those he tormented. Freddy is essentially a god, or at least highly powerful within the dream world, with him able to enter the minds of whoever he pleases, distorting their dreams and even killing them from within. He's also just immortal, it seems. Even when he's killed in and out of the dream world, he still returns one way or another. Sadako is another character with a substantial degree of power, with her having intensely powerful telekinetic abilities that allow her to remotely kill but also curse certain items, such as the tape. Despite Sadako being dead down the well, she still lives on as a vengeful Onryo, causing numerous deaths over the years. She seems to gain some respect from the entity too, with it treating her almost like an equal as it invites her to the realm, with the two forming a bond between ocean and fog. Dracula is a highly powerful being and the most famous vampire in existence. He has a wide range of abilities and even forms he can take on, as seen in the realm. He's further noted to have been resurrected a number of times before, meaning he's likely pretty close to immortal. The only things capable of taking him down being magical items, such as the whip wielded by the Belmonts. Dracula is certainly holding back in the trials and making sure he doesn't go too far in the realm. He's allowed certain privileges too, such as his castle being brought along with him. Dredge is a creature of unknown origin that was summoned to the Garden of Joy by Otto Stamper and his Ottomarians after they created a community which suppressed all negative thought and emotion. It's not entirely clear what Dredge actually is, but it appears to be a force made up of negative thoughts, a being willed into existence by the people there. Many believe Dredge is far more powerful, however, being an entity-like being possibly, with it being made up of a similar black fog cloud, and consuming things. Maybe even coming for the entity next. Whatever the case, this mysterious creature is clearly very powerful. Threatens the entity itself is a very special tier for the character who is so strong that even the elder spider god of the realm, the entity, is put at threat by their presence. This is reserved solely for Vecna. Vecna is a very unique case of a character being so strong that his presence alone in the realm is often considered a potential threat to the entity and its own safety. The focal point of Vecna's lore is the fact that Vecna became fascinated by the entity after discovering it, and dedicates his time to studying it and one day overthrowing it. The entity does seem to perceive Vecna as a threat too, with it providing him with the Mark of Negation, a mark on Vecna's neck that symbolizes a nerfing down of the character. This is why in the trials Vecna is so weak compared to his canon strength. His canon strength not being too dissimilar from the feats of the entity itself. Vecna has destroyed worlds with a kill count into the billions probably. People are fearful of saying his name is how feared he is. Whilst I don't think he ever will truly overthrow the entity, I do think the entity does definitely perceive him as some form of a threat. Well, that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to drop your own thoughts down below. Thanks, and Goodbye.